Philadelphia Phillies are back in the win column and with some momentum on their side, but there are still some questions about this roster and building it out to a true World Series contender. With the bullpen the biggest Achilles heel that is clear on this roster, and questions about several arms they are relying on, we have another trade report connecting them to a potential difference-making arm. I do want to highlight what this article proposed and if this would make sense for the Phillies' direction, as well as talk through a couple things that I think changed within this organization from a stance for building forward. So let's dive right into the topics of today, and do want to start off with the headline here that the Phillies are linked to a trade for Cardinals pitcher not named Ryan Helsley. Now, we've talked a lot about Ryan Helsley on this channel here. I personally am still a Ryan Helsley guy, that I would welcome that as an addition to this team. Of course, price being dependent here, but this digging a bit deeper into the bargain bin. And to dive into the write-up, that it states the St. Louis Cardinals and Philadelphia Phillies have long been linked in a trade that would send Cardinals closer Ryan Helsley to Philadelphia. The Phillies need relief pitching this season, and Helsley is the top name on the market. But if Philadelphia doesn't want to trade away the prospects it would take to land Helsley, it could turn to a different Cardinals pitcher as a trade target. Colin Keane of Sports Illustrated recently suggested the Cardinals and Phillies could come together on a trade that would send reliever Steven Matz to Philadelphia. And to give his full explanation of that he writes, quote, "The Philadelphia Phillies are gearing up for the 2025 Major League Baseball trade deadline," Keane wrote. "Between now and July 31st, Philadelphia's front office will be tasked with adding pieces to ensure World Series contention. Philadelphia should be monitoring the St. Louis Cardinals as important sellers, especially as MLB.com's Thomas Harrington recently identified 34-year-old reliever Steven Matz as a possible trade chip. This trade could be a win-win, giving the Phillies a proven arm to chase a World Series title while providing the Cardinals with the assets to bolster their ongoing youth movement. Matz has been solid this season and would provide Phillies with a solid lefty out of the bullpen, but Philadelphia needs a big upgrade, not a trivial one. If the Phillies are going to call the Cardinals, it should be about the aforementioned Helsley. It would be quite disappointing if the Phillies faithful if Matz were to be the team's top bullpen acquisition of the season. It wouldn't be a mad move if the Phillies could add him for cheap, but it can't be the only bullpen addition if they're serious about competing for a World Series this season." Now, it is funny to me that they basically talked themselves out of it in the middle of this article here, but that is sort of my thoughts here, that Steven Matz to me does not move the needle to this extent. Look through his career stats a bit. I do remember him from his time from the Mets, and to highlight what exactly that he has done this season, we're talking about that he's pitched in 22 games, 42.1 innings, and I do love the 39 strikeouts that he has tallied, but also given up 41 hits. That is 8.7 hits per 9 innings there, a 3.19 ERA, and a 1.110 whip. He is 34 years old, and one of the bizarre things, which this tends to happen with a lot of bullpen arms, but it's very hit or miss when you look year to year for what his production is. There are seasons that you look at that look really solid from a statistical standpoint. A 2.5 WAR that he produced his second season, an ERA under 3 there, but there's also seasons with a 9.58 ERA and seasons where he looked basically unpitchable there. This is not a guy that you should be cashing significant trade chips in. Now, when we talk about those trade chips, we got to go to the prospect conversation. And this is still one of the more perplexing things to me about the Dave Dombrowski era. Now, to talk about the ammunition that the Phillies do hold, we're talking about Andrew Painter as the 5th-ranked prospect in all of baseball. This according to MLB's Top 100 list. Aiden Miller at 21 there, the shortstop that I am curious what the future pathway is for him with Trey Turner, and we will get to that conversation when we get there. But Aiden Miller is another guy that does seem to be off limits from the Phillies' perspective. Justin Crawford, 51 ranked, and it is strange to me that we have not seen any sort of motion for a Justin Crawford opportunity. Obviously, Otto Kemp got the call out, is making his mark felt on this Phillies team, but the numbers for Crawford do not lie. They clearly don't think that he's ready yet. That if the Phillies believe that Justin Crawford was ready, he would have gotten an opportunity. That there have been outfield chances just screaming for someone to take them for a good portion of this season, and ultimately, we have not seen any sign of Crawford in there. Now, to dive deeper down in this list, Eduardo Tate, or Tait, is I believe how you officially pronounce it, catcher at 71, still incredibly young, and a guy that I would prefer to hold on to for sure. That I do think, looking ahead to JT Realmuto, who I'm back in on the JT experience. I think he's been performing way better of late. Still got wheels on him, almost catching Cassie on the base path. Still one of the best just managers of a game from a catcher perspective across the entire league, and it is just very slim pickings when looking out on the catcher market there. So keep him in mind. That is still several years down the line. And then, of course, Mick Abel coming in at 100. This is where it gets interesting to me, is I do believe that the intention of the Phillies, when they first brought up Mick Abel, this was to showcase him for a trade. But then he pitched so well, and particularly in that opening start, changed how I thought about Mick Abel, that it sort of changed that calculation. Now the dust has settled, and we've seen McAble get hit around by the New York Mets, which is a team that they are going to need somebody to pitch high leverage innings at the major league level. I do wonder if that pops out on the marketplace. Now, can you make the case that maybe just shifting McAble to a bullpen role could be something that is effective for this Phillies team? There is a case to be made there, but I also know how against that they've been with Andrew Painter even having that conversation. And I understand that Abel is viewed in very different light and that they are handling Painter with some kid gloves in a way that I've never really seen with prospects. But when talking about these potential names they could flip, and frankly, I don't think any of those guys are probably the most likely to be put in trades, that they seem pretty well protected by the organization. But that brings me back to my Dombrowski confusion here. The reputation of this guy, when he first came to Philadelphia, I thought the farm system was cooked. I thought he was trading everybody. He's getting stars. He's going all in. And while he's done some of that, as far as signing Trey Turner in free agency and making some big ticket moves, he's been really conservative on giving up prospects in a way that I think it's time to abandon to an extent. Now, is there the case to be made that obviously there's big changes on the horizon still, that Kyle Schwarber will be a free agent? Nick Castellanos, contract up next year. Alec Bohm, who knows what the deal is after that turbulent offseason that we had this past offseason? Could we be trending towards this next generation of Phillies baseball? For sure. And that's what complicates this to an extent. But I also think if you want to give this one more go, it has to be this year. You have to give this team the best chance. And when diving into this bullpen for what the current orchestration is, that we're talking about Jordan Romano, we know the deal at this point. He's been kind of shifted up to like a seventh inning role. And I know that Rob Thomson continues to sort of throw the defensive. We're looking at matchup things like this. It's pretty clear that Romano has been demoted from the primary closer or ninth inning guy. And again, Rob Thomson will continually lean on the slant if it's a matchup based decision. I just don't quite think that is the truth in a lot of these situations. And I have no problem with him moving Romano out of that role. I think he got much better from the start of the season, but he's not a guy that is locked down in the way that you need it to be. Now, can Orion Kirkring be that guy? We're going to find out. I think Orion's a lot better than a whole lot of people give him credit for. I don't know if he's quite ready to step into those shoes just yet, but now's the time to experiment and see what happens. It is the end of June. We've got a lot more baseball before we're really making those big decisions, so why not give it a chance? And on Romano, where I'm at with him, I'm fine with keeping him as a part of this bullpen. That I do think the guy tries, and there are nights where he does really have it. Where I think that there's some guts to him, some stones to him. That he's not gonna be a guy that quits or the moment feels too large. There's just nights where he does not have it. The variability on his fastball is really interesting to me. I've never really seen a pitcher with such wide range that some nights he's throwing 98, some nights he's throwing 92 on the fastball. And I can't really figure out the rhyme or reason, nor do I think he can either. But to continue down the bullpen, of course, I mentioned Kirkring. Strom, who has had a bit of regression this year. I love that they left him out there to close down that final Mets series to build up the confidence, or an inning of the Mets series to build up that confidence there. But Strom, we know exactly what we got here. And I do want to make a note that with as far as the pitching hand here, that of course Romano being a righty, Strom being a lefty, Kirkring being a righty. That's why I do think the left-handed pitcher is far more valuable from a trade deadline acquisition standpoint. That I feel okay about Kirkring and Romano. Strom, and then Tanner Banks is guy number 2. Now, with all respect to Tanner here, he's been pretty excellent since he's been thrown into a larger role, and is a guy that I'm growing confidence in him. But I think in an ideal world, that isn't your best second left-handed arm out of the bullpen, and I think the Phillies should try and find that world pretty quickly. Joe Ross, also wanted to bring into the mix here. Not really sure what to make of Joe Ross. We sort of were sold this vision when the signing went down of this guy being a dude who could be a multi-inning reliever. We did see him throw 3 innings this week and do just fine, but there's been very little of that. It's been like some high leverage opportunities, him being thrown in some big moments, and it's just been like it feels like they haven't settled in for a role for Joe Ross in a way that I think he's been mostly fine. I don't think he's a guy that can be like scaled up any significant. I'm fine with him being a part of this, but he's also not a guy that when we talk about the postseason perspective, we should really be counting on to get you through some jams here. So Joe Ross, fine, can stay, but not the dude. And here's where we really get into the dregs of the bullpen here. For starters, Alan Regal here, I don't really know how to feel about this guy yet. I don't want to like really put him down because he is still very young, has kind of bounced back and forth to the minors a little bit. The organization does seem to like him. We'll see what ultimately, I'll leave the jury out for discussion at this point in the game, but I don't think that is anything that is going to sway a postseason conversation. Taijuan Walker, that will sway a postseason conversation, and not in the direction that we want it to. Now, we've already seen Rob Thomson and the Phillies organization be willing to leave him out of the playoff rotation in its entirety. We still got to get there to this point. I really can't think of an occasion in which Taijuan Walker is necessary to this bullpen at this point. Unless we're talking about just get through the game, that we're down 11-1 in the 6th inning, man. Somebody just eat those innings up. what is Taijuan Walker here for? And it was nice at the very beginning of the season when we kind of talked ourselves into it. If he does look a little bit better this year, is this a guy that tries, that does compete? But I kind of wonder if at this point in the game, is it time to just swallow the money and call it that this is a failure? That the Taijuan Walker signing has not worked out as designed. I don't think there is any coming back or him raising his game to the extent that would be necessary for him to be impactful to this Phillies baseball team. Could Taijuan ultimately prove me wrong and magically turn things around? I would love to eat these words right here, but I think we've all seen enough of the Taijuan Walker experience to truthfully know what the deal is here. And the last guy on the list here is Max Lazar. I was pretty out on Max Lazar as a whole. He's impressed me these last couple games, and I do think that there is a little bit of trust in him from Rob Thomson. But this still brings me back to the point. I've looked down this list. Does this look like a World Series contending bullpen to you? Because it certainly does not to me. And with starting pitching being such a clear point of strength, what will be more maddening than ever is if games project to where Zack Wheeler throws 7 innings, lets up 1 run, and you guys are holding a 2-1 lead heading into the 8th inning. And then all of a sudden, Matt Strahm comes in and there's a home run over the fence. Or you're forced to use Joe Ross or Jordan Romano falls apart. There just has to be more bodies and more options, more quality bodies and more quality options for this bullpen as a whole. That is the priority at the deadline. I know we've talked a lot about the outfielder. I don't really believe that is going to be the direction that this team goes. And to just highlight a little bit, Brandon Marsh has been tearing the absolute cover off the baseball. I don't think this is here to stay and then he will hit a bit of a lull, but that certainly has helped out the outlook. Max Kepler, it's been up and down. We've seen how that has gone, but if this version of Marsh, which is far closer to the guy who first got here when the trade first went down, that changes the calculations for this outfit a little bit. It does for Rojas. Even for Nick Castellanos, we can start to bring in the mix. Will be interesting to see how it all shakes out. I don't think Castellanos getting benched or anything like that, but more thinking the defense first picture, we may get a little more Rob Thomson late action. But nonetheless, those are problems that will work themselves over time. Do want to hear from you what you guys think on that trade target and the bullpen as a whole. Drop your thoughts below, and it feels good to have the Phillies having a bit of momentum on their side. So make sure you guys are dropping your thoughts in the comments. Appreciate each one of you guys tuning in, and if you have not already, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like on this video below. I'll be back talking to you next time. Peace.